Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a focused learner trying to optimize your workflow, you have landed in the absolute right spot today. We're going to be unpacking the Kanban methodology. And honestly, it's pretty much the ultimate antidote to modern workplace burnout and those endless project bottlenecks. We're going to explore a framework that doesn't just manage your work, but actually transforms how you and your team experience the day-to-day.
So, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at how the Kanban system works. Then, the key practices and metrics. After that, we'll talk about how you actually implement Kanban. And finally, we'll dive into some really cool practical applications of the system out in the wild.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, how the system actually works and its core mechanics.
I want you to answer this honestly. Does your team start a whole lot of things, but finish very little? Because, yeah, it's a massive problem everywhere right now. So many teams are just buried in what we call human debt. You know, that compounding stress, the operational overload, and the sheer inefficiency of constantly switching gears. Everyone is super busy, right? But nothing is actually getting out the door. Well, Kanban was built specifically to solve that exact frustration.
Let's quickly define our terms here. Kanban is a Japanese word that translates to card or visual signboard. But it is so much more than just a label. It's an entire signaling system. It visually flags exactly when your team actually has the capacity to take on new work. And the brilliant part is that it doesn't force some traumatic, massive corporate reorganization. It simply uses visual cards to make your current, messing reality completely transparent.
Now, this really illustrates the paradigm shift at the heart of the whole thing. Traditional management usually relies on a push system, right? They just force tasks onto workers regardless of how overloaded they already are. Kanban totally flips this into a pull system. Work is only pulled into the active workflow when you actually have the capacity for it. And this all comes from an amazing historical observation. Back in the 1950s, a Toyota engineer named Taiichi Ohno noticed that American supermarket shelves were only restocked as customers actually removed products. He took that exact pull logic, applied it to the factory floor, and basically changed manufacturing forever.
All right, let's move on to Section 2 to uncover the rules that govern all this and how we actually measure our success. So, the entire methodology rests on 6 fundamental practices. And while they all definitely matter, I want you to apply the rule of 3 here and just focus on the absolute core pillars. Number 1, visualize your workflow. Number 2, limit your work in progress. And number 3, manage the flow by eliminating bottlenecks. The other practices, making policies explicit, setting up feedback loops, and improving collaboratively, those are basically the glue that holds the whole shebang together. Now let's talk about the most counterintuitive yet absolutely transformative secret weapon of this entire methodology, the WIP limit, or work in progress limit. I know it feels really weird to tell your team they aren't allowed to start new work, right? But setting a strict cap on simultaneous tasks is literally the key to unlocking true productivity.
Look, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, let it be this one highly actionable, super sticky mantra. Stop starting, start finishing. By putting a hard cap on active tasks, you are physically preventing people from taking on too much. It stops human burnout dead in its tracks. It kills that massive time drain of context switching, and it drastically accelerates how fast your team can actually deliver finished work. It's a total game changer.
But of course, once those limits are in place, you do need objective metrics to audit your performance, without making your team feel like they're being punished. So you track 2 critical life cycles. Lead time is the total time from the very first request on day 1 all the way to delivery on day 8. That measures the customer's wait time. Then there's cycle time, which is the time your team actively spent executing the task, say from day 3 to day 7. Tracking these tells you about the system's efficiency, not the individual worker's speed. Make sense?
So, the crucial point is, how do we actually do this? Let's get into Section 3, how to implement Kanban.
Before you grab a single sticky note or open up a new software tool, you need STATIK. That stands for Systems Thinking Approach to Introducing Kanban. Basically, it's the strategic foundation you need to properly diagnose your current workflow. Why is this so crucial? Well, because if you just download some generic board template off the internet, I guarantee your board will just become decorative and completely abandoned by next week. STATIK makes sure your board reflects your actual, living, breathing, operational reality.
The actual implementation happens in 4 core phases. You kick off with preparation and analysis, really diagnosing where the friction is. Then comes the board design. And the absolute golden rule here,
You have to map out the messy, real process you are using right now, not the fantasy ideal process you wish you had. Step 3 is establishing your system rules, like those all-important WIP limits, and finally, execution. This is where you use daily stand-ups to literally walk the board and unblock any stalled tasks.
A really common debate we see is whether to use a physical or a digital board. Look, if your team is all in the same room, start with a physical board. Analog sticky notes require practically zero investment, and they naturally spark conversation. It really is the best way to learn the ropes. But if you need synchronous remote access for a distributed team, or you want automated analytics for those lead and cycle times, you'll definitely need to migrate to a digital SaaS platform. Start simple and physical, and then scale to digital when you outgrow it.
All right, let's transition into our final section here. Section 4, Practical Application of Kanban, looking at some amazing real-world examples. As we know, Kanban originally came from manufacturing, but David J. Anderson brilliantly bridged the gap over to knowledge work. He started by building this virtual Kanban ecosystem for software maintenance at Microsoft back in 2004, and then refined it later at Corbis. What he proved was that even when the work is completely invisible, like lines of computer code, you can still visualize it, you can limit it, and you can dramatically improve your delivery times.
But hey, Kanban hasn't forgotten its physical roots either. Take the manufacturing world. Digital e-Kanban systems were actually used to stabilize the really intricate inventory flows between riveting and welding stations for L405 luxury car seats. The global brand Puma used these exact agile practices to drastically boost their profit margins. Even the massive textile industry uses it to guarantee they have supply continuity without dealing with the total nightmare of huge storage overheads.
But perhaps the most vital and honestly incredible application is in the healthcare sector. We are talking about critical, life-saving logistics here. Hospitals in Padua and Turin actively use it to manage their medical supplies. Over in Ponorogo, it's used to manage incredibly complex pharmacy supply chains. By applying this pull system, hospitals are radically reducing their storage costs, and even more importantly, they are preventing vital medications from expiring simply because stock is only ordered when there is a true, actual signal of demand.
So where is this all heading next? Well, the system is currently evolving into Kanban 4.0, or Smart Kanban. This is wild. It integrates the Internet of Things, active RFID tags, and artificial intelligence to just completely automate replenishment without any human intervention. We're also seeing AI predictive modeling being used to estimate those lead times with pinpoint accuracy. And culturally, we're seeing the rise of hybrid frameworks like Scrumban, which basically takes the collaborative meetings of Scrum and mashes them up with the continuous flow and WIP limits of Kanban. It really takes the edge off the rigid stress of traditional sprints.
Wow, okay. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, all the way from Taichi Ohno's supermarket epiphany in the 1950s right through to the AI-driven Kanban 4.0 of tomorrow. But I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Are you ready to stop starting and start finishing? The theory is clear, the metrics absolutely prove it works, and the steps to do it are right in front of you. So my challenge to you, grab a stack of sticky notes, map out exactly what your team is doing today, and build your very first board. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy finishing.